Good afternoon, I'm Kelly with Soundcheck Entertainment, and we are here with musician, director, actor, and 9-time CCMA nominee, Wes Mack.
How's it going?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing good, thanks for having me down.
Thanks for coming. So you, like I said, you've been a busy guy, and it's not just music that I've started reading up on you about, but tell us a little bit about, how you got into music, and obviously 2013 became a big year for you.
Yeah, so I'd been playing in a band since I was 13 years old. I think I picked up my first guitar when I was 11, started playing violin when I was like 6 or 7. It was always just something like, my dad was a musician, so there was always instruments around the house, and that was like a big deal. I don't know, I started my first band when I was a little kid, and within like 1 year of playing with those guys, I knew I wanted to do that for the rest of my life. Like prior to that, I was definitely thinking professional hockey player, but at a towering 5'10" and on a good day, I don't know if I got the size for it. But
seems to be a going professional.
We just started playing music, and it really changed my life at that point in time. Like, that became my whole identity. Like, I remember I wasn't a super popular guy in like junior high, high school or something like that, but all of a sudden on Friday nights we'd have it's me and the 2 guys in my band. We would order a pizza and rehearse for like 10 hours, and we'd just, it was fun. It was like, that became me, and that just kept going in life, and leading up to many years later in 2013, I'd spent about the year before that, I kind of put the brakes on everything else I was doing and just spent a year writing and recording until I really found I had a song that all of a sudden started to open doors. And it was really cool to see that writing the right song at the right time, it was really the thing that changed everything. Rather than having to ask people to help or something, you just kind of press play and you let people hear it and see where it goes from there. And that sort of kicked off me having a music career.
Mm-hmm. So that first song, Duet,
yeah,
which was with Carly McKillop, which she's pretty big in the country world as well. But I also heard that you didn't have a label or an agent or a management at that time. So how did you push to get that song out there?
Yeah, so the funny thing, I always gotta say, by no means would I say Duet is some amazing song. It was the right song, the right time. It's a lot of fun. I love playing it live. Honestly, we hired a fellow who put it out to radio, and there was, we set up a couple of shows at the time, just like me and my band. We ended up opening a couple of shows for Florida Georgia Line, who were at the time we're just playing 1,000-seaters kind of thing. Right. We literally went to them and said hey, we'll open for you for free if you don't have an opening act kind of thing. And they were like, cool, that saves us money. It was really it was very informal, and it was amazing to see though the reception of that song at radio really opened a lot of doors, and so at the time it was just I directed that music video myself, and it was just doing a lot of the work, and then letting the song do the rest.
Right. So that song became top 10 on the country Billboard. You also won the grand prize for an international music competition. Yeah,
which fortunately, I remember finding out the morning that had happened. I was up to my eyes in bills for studio for a lot of recording we've been doing, and I remember there was a cash prize involved in that, and it was one of those contests that you I know for musicians out there, you enter those things and you think you're never going to hear back, and they told me there was just under 10,000 entries to it, and the duet had won the overall top prize, and so it really saved me. I was able to pay for a bunch of stuff, and at the same time I also ended up winning the Discovery program through the CCMA, so it was a lot of very serendipitous things happening around, but I will say me and the folks in the band, I'd been working away on that for a couple of years leading up to it, and that was just us firing everything, and and being fortunate that people received the song really well.
That's cool. So 2014 you decided to go down to Nashville and spend a lot of time down there writing. So how does Nashville change your career?
It's a really interesting place to go. When you get down there, you kind of realize just how many talented creative people out there are. There's a ton of writers and producers, and I think probably the biggest thing was just going down there and writing a ton of songs. You go down and sometimes write 2 songs a day, and it really, for me, when you're writing with people who have written, #1 hit songs, you pick up tricks and good ideas, and you sort of get into a feel of oh wow, this is really what makes a good song work. And you can, and initially I thought I've usually written a lot of my stuff on my own. How am I going to feel about this? But it wasn't at all like stripping away any of my creativity. It was like, cool, I still get to bring all of my ideas in, but now I have some structural suggestions and just like cool ideas from other creative people. So getting to be down there really just like expanded me as a writer.
Right. And have you written songs for other people?
Yeah, I'm trying to think, I mean, nothing that's like, you know, that I can throw you out these massive writing credits kind of thing. It's a weird process when you go and write, a song you really love. A lot of my stuff I end up holding on to for ages because, you know, I think about like, oh, I could give that song to someone else, but maybe I want to cut it at some point in time. It's very like they're like your children.
How would you decide, to pass that song on?
So I've written a handful of tunes right now. Some of them that are actually potentially getting cut by a couple of other artists, but that I can't talk about because that's I don't want to get in their decision process. But yeah, it's something I really enjoy and like want to get into more because the more I've written, like again for this current album, I wrote just over 60 songs to piece this together, and most of those never really get to see the light of day because you have to hack it down. So it's I think songwriting has probably become one of my absolute favorite things in this line of work. In that like literally I get to spend a day or an afternoon or a couple days with like some of my good buddies, just like being goofy and like throwing around ideas until you land on something fun.
So the country music world, not just here in BC and across Canada, but it seems like, throughout North America, it just seems like a really close-knit kind of family.
Yeah.
I remember my first sighting of you, actually.
Wes Mack sighting. I like that.
Did. It was like 2014. It was at the Roxy. I can't even remember who was playing. I'm thinking...
Was I playing or was I just drinking?
You were just in the audience. And I just looked over and went, wow, that's Wes Mack. And this is just me, first time really getting into country music. But just in being in this... community, I've really noticed how everybody is so supportive of each other. And, what's your experience?
Yeah, exactly what you're talking about. In that, like, when I first started putting stuff out, like when I put out Duet, I had no idea of like the community I was sort of stepping into at the time, and that like overall, I've met a ton of people that I get along really well with. A lot of them have become like some of my best friends, and like there's always going to be an element of competition. Of course, but I haven't felt that tremendously. Like more so, it's been like I'm happy to see these people. Like the CCMAs are a cool event where it's like you get to see a bunch of people that you only get to see once a year. A lot of the artists I know will compare it to like kind of going off to summer camp, and then you get 5 or 6 days hanging out with these people, and a lot of times you don't get to see those people again for a whole year because like when you're touring around, you don't necessarily get to see a lot of the like other artists a lot because you're technically filling the same hole. Like so, if you're playing a show, probably your artist buddy is not going to be there unless you're billed on the same thing. Like festivals are kind of cool for that, and that you get to, it's like a small summer camp. But yeah, it's been a blast.
So in 2015, you had some pretty huge songs. Before You Drive Me Crazy, The Way You Let Me Down, Our Soundtrack. This all kind of led into you opening for Shania Twain. Yeah,
which obviously is still like a weird sentence to say. There was like a tremendously... It was the most fun thing I've ever gotten to do in my music career. It was like a real highlight, and obviously, like everyone, I loved her growing up. I listened to a lot of her stuff. So to get to like go on tour and not only go on tour and open, but like get to sing with her every night, get to do Party for Two, and find out as well that she is superbly a nice person. Her band were all spectacular. Her crew was tremendously helpful to us. I have no complaints. It was like it was just a lot of fun. It was like there are a few moments on that where I got to look out at the crowd, and I remember my dad before the tour he'd set me aside. He's a musician as well, and he said like, "Hey, remember when you're dealing with all the craziness of this and you're caught up in it, like to take a minute or just even a second from every show and make sure you look out at the crowd and you take like a mental image of that. Because like you're going to have that for the rest of your life and you'll kick yourself if you don't." And I'm really glad he said it because oftentimes like I remember the first show we did in Seattle with her, I was on such an adrenaline. I to this day, I remember walking up the ramp and I remember walking down the ramp, and I don't remember, it was the first one, I was just like running on nothing but adrenaline. We'd rehearsed the heck out of the show. So like I know, in theory, we did a decent job. People were cheering when we left, but like, for as we got further into them, I always did take a moment and just like look out at it because like, not everybody gets to do that, and it was I don't know that I'll ever get to stand with Shania Twain on stage again. I have no idea. Right. But like, it's a moment that I'm grateful to just like have. For me personally, as like a human, it's a weird memory to have, but I'm pretty grateful for.
That's cool. So you then released the Edge of the Storm album, and with those songs on as well. But there's another song called Listen to Me. You directed the video for it.
Yeah.
It's a really cool video. Tell us a bit about the video and how you've been directing other things before this. But
so that would have been, I think that was like the 11th music video I directed, and it's probably my favorite that I'd done in that, like, it was sort of like a personal journey kind of video. I went and dug through a bunch of like old home movie family footage. I talked to my parents, and we got all this old like camcorder footage, and I had it digitized and like popped it onto a hard drive, and I sat there and basically it was actually a really kind of bizarrely rewarding process. I kind of got to dig through footage from my childhood that, like, a lot of it, some of the things I had memories of and some I didn't, and the number of times I called my parents like while doing that and was like, oh my god, do you remember this? Like, da, da, da. It was you know, there's like things in there that you tear up because, like, you know, there's people who maybe aren't alive anymore in it, and there's other things that are just like, it's one of my favorite memories that I have. So I got to piece that together along with a bunch of footage from the Shania tour, as well as some new stuff we shot, and kind of made something that, like, if you watched that 3.5-minute video, you'd have a decent idea of like what I've been up to in my life.
It's very personal. For sure, but it's very cool. So who else have you directed videos for?
I did one a handful of years ago for One More Girl, so like Carly McKillop and her sister. That was the first time I got to do like large pyrotechnics in a video. And I point that out because I was superbly nervous because those girls look great, but they had a decent amount of hairspray in their hair. And like we had them fairly close to a fire's going on, and like, you know, I had like the right permits and the right people on hand and fire extinguishers there. But I remember right before we shot it, in the back of my head, I'm like, if we light them on fire, I'm in a lot of trouble. And fortunately, there was no problems. So that was a good one. I did one for a rock band, Head of the Herd. They'd come out with they were the first Canadian indie rock band to put out like a #1 song in Canada. So I did a video for them, and I've done a couple more for an artist friend of mine named Lydia Hall. A lot of the videos that I've done have ended up being mine, which is like a curse and a blessing, in that you get to take a song that you've written and, you know, put the visuals on it, and I love getting to do that. It's like the final icing on the cake. You also are, like, I'm probably wearing too many hats and get a little too close to it at times. Like, I love directing videos for other people. It's just like the time commitment. I've sadly had to pass on a lot of them because I like to have a good month to do like pre-production and shoot it and edit it, and like there aren't many months in my life where I'm like, I am free and easy for the next month. So I think I might do a little, there's one that I might do this year, but like, it's just, I don't know, it's another fun area to create. It's really similar to songwriting, bizarrely, in that you're just telling a story and you're finding a way that, like, for a music video, you have 3.5 minutes to make people feel something, whether that's like people getting wasted at a party, or whether that's like a sad story of a breakup, whatever it is. Like, you got to take the heart of the song and, you know, put something on top of it.
So not only are you an accomplished musician, director, you're also an actor. And most recently, I just watched the Power Ranger movie, which was really fun.
I'm not nice in that movie.
I know,
I'm a mean guy.
I was really surprised. So how did you get into acting?
How did I get into acting? It's a good question. I guess when I was at university, I took like a number of theater classes, and I was in a couple of plays, and it wasn't really like the focus for me in life. It was just something I enjoyed. Again, another creative thing. It was fun. I kind of fell backwards into it, and that, like, I realized while doing that I quite enjoyed it, and I was lucky enough on my last day of university, I booked a part. I had one line on the Vampire Diaries, and all of a sudden I realized, like, oh, this is another thing I can go after. So I took a bunch of acting classes and like really dove into that, and just over the years have been like fortunate and, you know, to show up and audition for a number of things and make my way in. I mean, it's I don't know if it's probably more complicated than that, but it like, you just kind of pick away at it. It's similar to music in that, like, I've been playing music for 3/4 of my life or something like that. It's, with all these things, it is a marathon and not a sprint. And like, I think the main thing that's been helpful with, you know, having acting, directing, and music is, like, in all those careers you hit roadblocks and you hit walls at times, and it's nice to have another outlet in those moments, because otherwise it's just really frustrating. Like, I know from actor friends or other artist friends or directors of, like, when they're running up against the wall, like, they have nowhere to go. I like that I have somewhere to sort of decompress off of things, because I find just slamming your head into the wall, that's how people end up like giving up on what they're doing, or just having a bad time with it. So it's, again, I've been lucky to have acting as well as another place that I can create stuff.
Do you have anything new coming up? Any shows?
This next year, I shot a film this past year with Liam Neeson. It's a movie called Hard Powder, and I don't know the release date of it, but it's going to be sometime in 2018. And it is going to be nuts. It's like, I don't want to say a ton about it, but it's like it's sort of set up as like a black comedy, but it's like very intense. He's just great to work with. Like he is every bit as good when you're with him in the room as, like, you know, I mean, I grew up watching a lot of Liam Neeson movies and had like a huge amount of respect for him, and it was like such a relief in the same way with Shania, actually, of that, like when you meet someone like that that's sort of on a pedestal, that they're really nice. And he was a very humble dude, just like hung out with the crew on set. He didn't have like a special chair for him or anything. He was just sitting on a bench beside me, like talking about whatever, and then was great on set as well. So just like a super fun experience.
Now, this Friday, you have a new song being released out into
the
world. Tell us a little bit about that song.
Yeah, so House on Fire comes out Friday, and it was, again, like I wrote probably just over 60 songs. Basically, following Edge of the Storm, I had this record that effectively had changed my life, and I didn't want to just rush, like go, okay, let's write some stuff real quick and start putting this out, because there's definitely a temptation to do that and just try and ride the wave of the last record, and I that felt wrong for me, and that like I'd spent so much time getting the songs together for Edge of the Storm. I wanted to give this the same time, so I, in a combination of writing down in Nashville and up in Canada, wrote about 60 songs. We recorded 36 demos. It was nuts. And ultimately zeroed in on, like, you know, the handful that are going to be on the record, and the first single of that being House on Fire. And it was honestly, the idea for it, I was back in Calgary where I grew up, and I was driving past one of my buddy's places. It was like one of my closest friends, still is, and he used to just have sort of like the wildest parties kind of thing. In high school, it was like the party place. And I just remembered this one particular party driving by where, like, every room you went into, something like bizarre was happening. Like I remember, like, people were like snowboarding down the stairs, and I'm trying to think of like all the PG versions of there was a staple gun fight that happened at some point. It was very unsafe, and at some point the party just kind of like spilled out into a baseball diamond across the street, and then we all ended up climbing, or not all of us, but a bunch of us climbed up on the roof and watched the Northern Lights that had come out, and then we went back inside and listened to like a Bob Marley record. It was just sort of like, it felt like an important night in my life kind of thing. So I sort of was toying around with the idea of it, and then I sat down with a guy named Donnie Anderson and Murray Daigle, who were the other two writers on the song. And Murray had described, we had just met them, he said, oh yeah, we get along like a house on fire, which is like a very kind of old-timey thing to say. And I was like, I've heard that, but I hadn't thought of that in a while. And it all of a sudden clicked to be like, that's how we write this song that I want to write. Like, that's the hook to it. And so we put that together. The song kind of came together very quickly, and we were actually able to go back, the photo shoot, if you look at like the single cover of me like down in the dirt there, that's on the baseball diamond where that party was across the street from. So I went back to Calgary and made sure we, like, I like to tie those kind of things back into my life. So yeah, that's like a little bit of the creation of House on Fire.
Oh, that's awesome.